Jets fans give a lot of love to the draft classes of both 2021 and 2022, but there is one sneaky draft class that happened a little while ago that has really helped to make this team what it is today. Well. Welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watu-K99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. Hey, if you enjoy what you're watching, please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share with a friend. I love doing the content for you, and I would love for you to help me get the word out because I want to keep growing this channel. All right, so I hope I got a little bit of your attention with the opening and with the title. What am I talking about? The Jets have been one of the worst drafting teams for years until Joe Douglas came along, and even the 2020 draft doesn't look quite so great right now. You know, mostly bad, a lot of injuries in that class, but a lot of disappointments coming out of that class. So you might be wondering, Watu-K99, what are you talking about? What draft class was it that was so great for this Jets team? Well, we're going to have to look a little bit deeper, but there is one draft class that really helped to make this team and give it some of its core foundational starters, backups, and depth players, and it is the draft class of the year 2018. Now, if you remember the 2018 New York Jets draft class, it wasn't one of the best. It was Mike Maccagnan's, I believe, next to last draft class. In fact, it was his next to last draft class. And right after the 2019 draft, he would be let go, as Adam Gase won that ridiculous power struggle that was going on in the front office at the time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the 2018 draft. We're going to talk about who the Jets picked, just quickly, not going to go into huge depth. But we're going to talk about the Jets picks and some other players that were drafted in that class. And as we start to, peel back the layers of the onion, as a lot of people like to say, I think my point will start to make a little bit more sense. At least I hope it does. So with the Jets' first three picks in that draft class, in 2018 they drafted Samdarnold at quarterback, Nathanshepherd at defensive tackle, and Chrisherndon at tight end. Those were picks in the first round, third round, and fourth round, respectively. Okay, now Darnold and Herndon we're going to put to the side for a little bit. We're going to come back to them later. Nathanshepherd is the only player from this draft class who is still a Jet to this day. A lot of Jet fans not big fans of number 97, but we have to admit he has been a pretty good contributor. He's been a nice little rotational piece. Certainly not a star, not a great player. It didn't make sense to draft him back then, but he's at least showing he can come in and contribute in limited doses. And now with Sheldon Rankins injured, he may be playing even more. Who knows? So that was the first three picks the Jets had. Now, their next pick didn't come until the fifth round, but we're not going to do that right just yet. We're going to talk about the fourth round. Now, you say, but they didn't have the pick in the fourth round. That's right, they didn't, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did. And with the 117th pick in the fourth round, they drafted safety Jordan Whitehead, who played 4 years with Tampa Bay, won a Super Bowl, and signed a 3-year contract to play for the Jets. So the Jets got their starting safety from this draft class. Now, yes, I know I'm sort of taking liberties, but the bottom line is you'll start to notice is that Joe Douglas can find these players who have been let go or being discarded by their former teams. He sees what they are capable of, and he brings them in before they turn old and while they are still productive and are approaching the peaks of their career. So he did it with Whitehead, and it's not the last time that you'll see him do it. So Whitehead, he got it, the Tampa Bay Bucks selected at 117. Now, also in the fourth round, 135, the LA Rams had a pick, and they chose a defensive end. That defensive end's name was John Franklin Myers, number 91. who got a sack in the Super Bowl off shady Tom Brady. The Rams decided, we have too much talent on this defensive line. We just don't have room for you. We wish you well in your future endeavors. And Joe Douglas was right there to welcome him with his big arms and say, JFM, you are one of us. We need a pass rush. Won't you rush the quarterback for us? And JohnFranklinmyers has certainly done that. He has been a very, very good waivers pickup for the Jets, parlaying his way into a new contract, which he signed a couple of weeks into the 2021 season. Very capable player, had a few penalties, roughing the passer penalties that we're not thrilled with, but definitely a great find for this team. Now we go to the 5th round of the 2018 draft. And the Jets did not, I believe, have a pick in the 5th round. But a couple of other teams did. One of them was the San Francisco 49ers. And they drafted a cornerback, young cornerback. His name was djreed. Can you believe djreed was picked 142 overall in a draft as well as he is playing? This guy is playing like a top 5 cornerback in all of football, for crying out loud. And if it wasn't for Sauce Gardner, he'd probably be getting a lot more attention than he currently does. And, of course, Joe Douglas signs djreed to a 3-year, $33 million contract before this year. What a steal of a contract that is turning into. A little better than Tremaine Johnson, who made $18 million a year, wouldn't you say? And then, also in the 5th round at 157, the Minnesota Vikings had a draft pick, and they took a tight end named Ty Conklin, who played a couple of years with Minnesota, slowly got a little bit better and a little bit better. He became a free agent, and the New York Jets welcomed him in as their new starting tight end to pair up with C.J. Uzomah. And Conklin has been one of the team's leading receivers this year. Got off to a rough start with some drops, with some fumbles, but he has definitely turned his play around. He's had several touchdowns this season, including 2 against New England. So Ty Conklin was also drafted in the 2018 draft. Now, also in the 5th round at 171, the Dallas Cowboys drafted Mike White. That's right, Mike effing White, the Hall of Famer, Mike White himself, who there's still a little pocket of Jets fans who are still hoping one day Mike White will have his just due chance to start for the Jets. I don't think that's going to happen, but we did get that one beautiful Mike White game against Cincinnati, and we do have a backup quarterback. Now the team's number 2 quarterback. Now in the 6th round, the Jets had 2 picks. They were back-to-back picks. They took Perry Nickerson, a cornerback, and Foley Fatukasi, defensive tackle. Nickerson did not last very long with the Jets, though he is still in the league. But Foley Fatukasi turned into an excellent run-stuffing defensive tackle for the Jets. Just didn't fit as well into the Robert Saleh system, and he took his talents over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, other picks in the 6th round. Marcel Harris was picked 184 by the San Francisco 49ers. Good special teams linebacker, good fill-in guy if you need him to be. Decent depth pick. The Jets also drafted Trenton Cannon in the 6th round. That was their last pick of the draft. A couple other draft picks that we're going to look at. Number 210 of the 6th round. The New England Patriots draft from Miami, Braxton Berrios. And it is amazing to me to this day that the Patriots let him walk. I mean, Berrios is one of probably the top 5 most popular Jets right now. You know, Berrios has turned into an absolute gamer for this team, and what's been so cool about Berrios is you just see him getting better and better. You know, he had a definite case of the dropsies when he first came in, but he is sort of that Swiss Army knife that Mike LaFleur loves to use, you know, whether he's catching passes, whether he is going on end-arounds, or even throwing a touchdown pass to Zach Wilson. You know, he could do it all, and did I mention he's a pretty good returner also? So Berrios came from that draft class, 212. You had Greg Senat, offensive tackle drafted by Baltimore, who is in the Jets' depth system, currently injured. And finally, in the 7th round, number 237, the Detroit Lions drafted fullback Nick Bawden, who the Jets brought in halfway through last season and became, I thought, a really good part of that offense. Very good special teams player. I keep saying this. If you go back and watch Braxton Berrios' kickoff touchdown return, you will see Nick Bawden open it up by throwing a huge, huge block for him. Bawden had a great attitude, a whole lot of toughness. Unfortunately, he got hurt. So we don't know what he would have been this year, but I definitely think he would have been a big help for a team that really thrives on its run game. I hope the Jets bring him back next year. I don't know if they will, but you did get a starting fullback, and he would have still been starting now had he not gotten injured. So that's a lot of players, but you know what? Let's go just one level deeper, just one level. Let's talk about two of those first three picks we mentioned, Sam Darnold and Chris Herndon. First, Chris Herndon. Let's start with him. After one rookie season that looked pretty promising, he showed a little bit of chemistry with Sam Darnold. Chris Herndon basically he made Kyle Brady look like Antonio Gates. Okay, the guy just completely disappeared. And after the 2021 season, the Jets decided, you know what? We've had enough of Chris Herndon. We're going to trade him. Would there be any other team in the league willing to give up anything of value for Chris Herndon? Well, there was, and it was the Minnesota Vikings. They gave the New York Jets a 4th-round pick in exchange for Chris Herndon and a 6th-round pick. That 4th-round pick was in the 2022 NFL Draft, and with that pick, the New York Jets selected fan favorite Michealclemons, a big, scary piece to add to that defensive line. Not getting as much playing time as some other guys are, but he always seems to make 1 or 2 impact plays a game, becoming a very good run defender as well, and a violent tackler, which Coach Solomon loves. So Chris Herndon basically turned into Michealclemons. How about that one? Now you have the Sam Darnold trade. So that was for a 6th-round pick in 2021, and then a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick in 2022. So that 6th-round pick was packaged in a trade to Kansas City. The Jets and Kansas City both swapped 2 picks apiece. And with those 2 picks that they got from Kansas City, the Jets selected Jason Pinnock, safety, towards the end of last year. They let him go. The Giants took him, and he can't even get on the field. So if you want to call that a wash, that's fine. And they also drafted Jonathan Marshall. We'll see what he winds up being, if anything. Still on the practice squad. Great athleticism. Yet to put it all together. But you know what? With Sheldon Rankins injured, I would not be surprised to see Jonathan Marshall called up from the practice squad to maybe get a few opportunities to play on this defensive line, because athleticism works on this D-line. Then, if you go to 2022, they had a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. That 2nd-round pick was going to be number 38. It wound up not being 38. The Jets traded up to draft Breecehall, running back, and I don't need to say too much more about Breecehall, other than he is one of the Jets' best weapons that they have had in decades. Shame that he got hurt, but absolutely a home run pick there. And with that 4th-round pick, offensive tackle Max Mitchell, who wound up being pressed into starting duty well before he was ready for it, well before the Jets probably wanted him to be starting. But he was fairly competent. He wasn't a turnstile. He wasn't getting run over. Still a very raw piece of clay, but showed his abilities, and he should be back from his lower body injury soon, and we'll see if he gets a chance to start. So if we break this down, if we take a look at who the Jets drafted and then what they turned some of those picks into, and also the other players from that draft class that Joe Douglas was smart enough to jump on and was able to bring them to Florham Park. Let's take a look at what happens. So I'm breaking down here starters, backup players, and depth pieces. And we're doing that by each position. So if you look at the starters, the Jets got from this class a starting running back, a starting fullback, a starting tight end, a starting defensive end, a starting cornerback, a starting safety, and a starting kick returner. With the backups, you have a backup quarterback, you have a backup wide receiver. I'm putting Berrios as both backup wide receiver and a starting kick returner. You have a backup offensive lineman, a backup defensive tackle, and a backup defensive end. And then with the depth pieces, you can add in an offensive lineman, a defensive tackle, and a linebacker. And those are just the players still on the team. If I was still counting Jason Pinnock, if he was still here, he'd probably be, at worst, a backup safety. Everyone's going to talk about how good 21 and 2022 were, but don't overlook what happened in 2018. Joe Douglas wasn't even here for that draft, but his impact, if you look up and down the list, the impact of that draft class has been immense, particularly the lower half of that draft. That's what makes it even more impressive. Joe Douglas recognized those raw talents that not every other team knew, and he brought them into the Jets, and it's one of the biggest reasons why the Jets are 6-3 with a legitimate shot to not only make the playoffs, but win the AFC East. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little trip. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.